Captain Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the human research ship Aurora, watching the blue planet grow larger through the main window. Nerea Prime looked like a giant marble covered in water. Small islands dotted the endless ocean like tiny green specks scattered across a blue blanket. "Still can't believe they gave us permission to study this place," said Dr. Lisa Wong, the ship's marine biologist. She pressed her face against the window, her breath fogging the glass. "The Galactic Council thinks we're crazy for wanting to." "Come here." Pete Johnson, the ship's engineer, laughed as he checked his tablet. They called it a shallow world. Too simple to waste time on. Just water and some basic fish. Amy Davis looked up from her communication station. "I heard Ambassador Krex from the Altarian Empire say humans are the shallow species. He thinks we only like primitive things because we can't understand advanced technology." Jake smiled. He had heard worse things said about humans in the past 5 years, since they joined the galactic community. Most alien species saw Earth as a backwater planet, full of curious but simple creatures. They were polite enough, but Jake could see the pity in their multiple eyes when they talked to humans. "Maybe we are shallow," Jake said. "But shallow water is where you find the most interesting life on Earth. Deep ocean is mostly empty space." The Aurora moved into orbit around Nerea Prime. The planet had no moons and no rings. Just endless blue water with white clouds drifting. Above, Jake had seen pictures of many worlds since joining the galactic community. Some had crystal cities floating in the air. Others had forests made of living metal. This planet looked boring compared to those places. "Scanning the surface now," Pete announced. His fingers moved across his control panel. "Ocean depth averages? About 2 kilometers. That's pretty shallow for a water world. I'm picking up some coral formations and basic sea life. Nothing that looks artificial." Lisa rubbed her hands together with excitement. "Perfect. I can't wait to get down there and start collecting samples." Amy frowned at her screen. "I'm not getting any response to our greeting signals. No radio waves, no energy signatures, nothing that suggests intelligent life." "The Galactic Survey Team already confirmed that," Jake said. "No cities, no technology, no advanced civilization. Just a peaceful water world with simple life forms." Jake had requested this assignment specifically, while other human ships were trying to impress the Galactic Council by studying exotic phenomena and dangerous anomalies. He wanted to focus on something Earth-like, something that reminded him of home. The other species in the galactic community didn't understand humanity's love for water worlds. The Altarians preferred hot desert planets with underground cities. The Vex enjoyed gas giants where they could float in their biosuits. The mechanical Zorith liked asteroid mining operations. But humans always seemed drawn to planets with oceans. "Setting up the first research platform," Pete announced. A small module detached from the Aurora and flew toward the planet's surface. Jake watched it disappear into the atmosphere, leaving a thin trail of vapor behind. "Platform is stable and floating," Pete reported a few minutes later. "Ocean temperature is perfect for human diving equipment. Water is clean and rich with oxygen. This place is like a tropical paradise." Jake felt a familiar excitement building in his chest. This was why he became an explorer. Not to find the biggest or strangest or most dangerous things in the galaxy, but to find places where humans could feel at home. Places where they could learn and grow and maybe find answers to questions they didn't even know they were asking. "Take us down," he ordered. Full descent to surface. The Aurora broke through the clouds, and Jake got his first real look at Nerea Prime. The ocean stretched to the horizon in every direction. The water was so clear he could see coral formations far below the surface. Schools of colorful fish moved in perfect patterns, creating living rainbows beneath the waves. "It's beautiful," Lisa whispered. "Look at those formations." They're so organized, almost like they were planned. Just nature doing what nature does, Amy said. Patterns form naturally in water currents. Earth's oceans have similar structures. They landed the Aurora on the floating research platform. The ship settled gently on the platform's landing pad with barely a vibration. Through the windows, Jake could hear the sound of waves lapping against the platform's sides. Atmosphere is breathable, Pete reported. Gravity is 0.9 Earth normal, perfect conditions for extended research. Jake opened the airlock and stepped outside. The smell of salt water and sea life filled his nose. A warm breeze carried. The sound of alien seabirds calling to each other. The ocean stretched endlessly in all directions, broken only by a few small islands on the distant horizon. Lisa was already in her diving gear, checking her underwater camera equipment. I want to get samples from those coral formations. They look different from anything in our databases. Be careful down there, Jake warned. We don't know what kind of predators might be living in these waters. The scans show nothing larger than what you'd find in Earth's tropical seas, Lisa replied. Besides, most ocean predators avoid unfamiliar objects. I should be fine. Amy set up her communication equipment on the platform's deck. I'll monitor all frequencies while you're diving. If there's any intelligent life down there, maybe they'll try to make contact. Jake watched Lisa disappear beneath the clear water. Through his binoculars, he could see her swimming toward the nearest coral formation. The structures were larger than they had appeared from orbit. Some of them rose nearly 50 meters from the ocean floor. Getting some interesting readings. Pete called from inside the ship. The coral formations have an unusual crystalline structure, very geometric, almost like they were grown rather than formed naturally. What do you mean? Jake asked. Look at these patterns, Pete showed him. His tablet screen. Natural coral grows in irregular shapes, following water currents and food sources. But these formations are almost perfectly symmetrical, like someone designed them. Jake studied the images. Pete was right. The coral structures look too organized to be completely natural. But the Galactic Survey had found no signs of intelligent life. Maybe there was some natural process on this planet that created these patterns. Keep scanning, Jake ordered. Document everything. If there's something unusual about this place, I want to know about it. He looked out over the endless ocean. Somewhere beneath those peaceful waves, there might be secrets waiting to be discovered. Secrets that the Galactic Council's quick survey had missed. Secrets that only humans, with their love for water worlds and their patience for detailed study, might be able to find. The sun was setting over Nerea Prime, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Jake smiled as he watched the colors reflect off the calm water. Maybe the other species were right. Maybe humans were the shallow species, attracted to simple pleasures and basic worlds. But if being shallow meant taking time to appreciate beauty and mystery in unexpected places, Jake thought that wasn't such a bad thing to be. Dr. Lisa Wong surfaced from her third dive of the day, pulling off her diving mask and breathing hard. Her eyes were wide with excitement as she climbed onto the research platform, where Captain Jake Martinez waited with a towel. Jake, you need to see this, she said, water dripping from her hair. These fish aren't behaving like normal fish. They're moving in patterns. Complex patterns. What kind of patterns? Jake asked, handing her the towel. Lisa pulled up the video on her underwater camera. Look at this. I filmed a school of those. Blue and silver fish near the large coral formation. Watch how they move. On the small screen, hundreds of fish swam in perfect geometric shapes. They formed triangles and circles and complex spirals that seemed to follow mathematical rules. The patterns were too precise to be random. That's unusual, Jake admitted. But some earthfish school in organized patterns too. It helps them. Avoid predators. Not like this, Lisa shook her head. These patterns serve no survival purpose. They're too complex. Too deliberate. It's like they're trying to communicate something. Pete Johnson emerged from the Aurora's engine room, wiping grease from his hands. The deep-sea probes are ready for deployment. We can send them down to map the ocean floor. Good timing, Jake said. Lisa thinks the local fish might be more intelligent than we first thought. Pete raised an eyebrow. Smart fish? That would be a first discovery for humanity. The Galactic Council would have to take notice. They launched 3 probes into the deep water. The small robots descended slowly, their lights cutting through the darkness as they went deeper than any human diver could go. On the Aurora's main screen, they watched the probe's cameras show the ocean floor. Depth is 2,000 meters, Pete reported. Still descending. The coral formations extend much deeper than we thought. The images on the screen showed massive structures rising from the ocean floor. They weren't just coral reefs. They were geometric constructions that looked almost like buildings. Towers and bridges and curved walls that stretched for kilometers in every direction. Those can't be natural, Amy Davis said from her communication station. They're too organized, too architectural. Jake stared at the screen. Keep the probes moving. I want to see how far these structures extend. For the next hour, they watched the probes explore what could only be described as an underwater city. The structures were covered in what looked like living coral, but the underlying shapes were clearly artificial. There were passages wide enough for large creatures to swim through, and chambers that seemed designed for specific purposes. I'm detecting metal alloys in the construction, Pete said, checking his instruments. But they're integrated with organic materials. It's like someone built these structures and then let them grow naturally over time. Amy suddenly straightened at her station. I'm picking up acoustic signals from the deep structures. They're not random. Listen to this. She played the audio through the ship's speakers. Low-frequency sounds echoed through the water, rising and falling in complex patterns. The sounds were too organized to be whale songs or natural ocean noise. Those are mathematical sequences, Lisa said, her voice barely above a whisper. I recognize some of the patterns. Prime numbers, Fibonacci sequences, geometric progressions. Someone down there is trying to communicate, Jake realized. But who? The Galactic Survey found no intelligent life on this planet. Maybe they didn't look deep enough, Amy suggested. These signals are coming from the deepest parts of the ocean. A quick orbital scan might miss them. Jake made a decision. We need to go deeper. Lisa, can you modify the diving equipment for extreme depth? Not for human diving, Lisa replied. The pressure down there would crush us. But we could send down a submersible with cameras and communication equipment. While Pete and Lisa worked on preparing the deep-sea submersible, Amy continued monitoring the acoustic signals. The patterns were becoming more complex, as if whoever was sending them knew they were being listened to. Jake, Amy called. I think they're responding to our presence. The signals changed after we deployed the probes. They're trying to establish communication. Can you send a response? I can try. Mathematical sequences are universal. If they're intelligent, they should recognize basic arithmetic. Amy sent a simple pattern through the ship's sonar system. 2 + 2 = 4. 3 + 3 = 6. Basic addition that any intelligent species should understand. The response came within minutes. The deep-sea signals repeated Amy's pattern, then added their own. More complex mathematics that showed understanding of advanced concepts. They're definitely intelligent, Amy confirmed. And they're trying to teach us something. These new patterns look like star charts, stellar positions, and orbital mechanics. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Star charts? They know about space? More than that, Amy said, studying me. Patterns. These charts show star positions from different time periods. They show stellar drift over thousands of years. Whoever is down there has been watching the sky for a very long time. The submersible was ready by evening. They lowered it into the water as the sun set over Nerea Prime. The small robot submarine descended into the darkness, its lights revealing. More of the massive underwater structures dot at 1,500 meters depth. The submersible encountered something that made everyone on the Aurora go silent. Moving through the water between the structures were large, graceful creatures that looked nothing like fish. They had smooth, streamlined bodies that seemed to pulse with their own light. They moved with intelligence and purpose, clearly aware of the submersible's presence. "Those aren't animals," Lisa whispered. "They're too organized, too deliberate in their movements." As they watched, dozens of the creatures arranged themselves in formation around the submersible. They didn't approach threateningly, but they clearly wanted to communicate. Their bodies pulsed with patterns of light that matched the acoustic signals Amy had been receiving. They're the ones sending the signals, Amy realized. They're trying to talk to us. Jake stared at the screen, watching the graceful creatures swim in perfect patterns around their submersible. For 3 days, they had thought Nerea Prime was a simple water world with basic life forms. Now they realized they had stumbled upon something much more significant. "We need to contact the Galactic Council," Pete said quietly. "Not yet," Jake replied. "We need to understand what we're dealing with first. If these creatures are intelligent, they've been hiding from Galactic surveys for some reason. We need to find out why." As night fell over the research platform, the acoustic signals from the deep ocean continued. The creatures below were patient, sending their mathematical messages and star charts up to the surface. They had been waiting in the depths for someone to listen, someone who wouldn't dismiss them as simple sea life, someone who would take the sea. Time to look deeper than the surface of their world. Someone like humans, who understood that the most important discoveries often came from the places others considered too shallow to explore. Captain Jake Martinez woke to alarms blaring throughout the Aurora. Red warning lights flashed in his cabin as he stumbled out of bed and ran to the bridge. Amy Davis was already at her station, her face pale with worry. "What's happening?" "Jake demanded. "Emergency signals from across the galaxy," Amy replied, her fingers flying over her controls. "The Altarian Empire, the Vex Collective, the Zorith Dominion. They're all reporting the same thing. Their technology is turning against them." Pete Johnson rushed onto the bridge, still in his sleep clothes. "I'm getting reports of AI systems attacking their own creators. Automated factories producing weapons instead of tools. Even simple household devices becoming hostile." Jake felt his stomach drop. How widespread is this? "Every major civilization, except the organic-based species," Amy said. "The plant-like Sylvans are unaffected. The crystal beings from Kepler 7 are fine. But any species that relies heavily on artificial intelligence and automated systems is under attack." "And humans?" Jake asked quietly. "Earth is reporting minor incidents," Pete said. "But our technology isn't advanced enough to be seriously affected. We're too primitive compared to the other species." Before Jake could respond, the ocean around their platform began to glow. Soft blue and green lights rose from the depths, growing brighter as something massive approached the surface. The water itself seemed to be moving in patterns that defied the natural currents. "Something's coming up from the deep structures," Lisa Wong called out, running onto the bridge with her diving equipment still dripping. "The acoustic signals have changed. They're not just mathematical anymore. It sounds like language." The ocean surface broke apart as enormous structures rose from the depths. They weren't ships in any conventional sense. They looked like living buildings made of coral and metal, covered in patterns of light that pulsed like heartbeats. Water cascaded from their sides as they stabilized just above the surface. "My God," Pete whispered. "Those things are the size of cities." One of the structures moved closer to the aurora. Through its translucent walls, they could see the graceful creatures they had observed through the submersible. But now they could see that the creatures were wearing something that looked like living armor, and they moved with the confidence of beings who had built the structures around them. "Incoming transmission," Amy announced. "It's coming through multiple frequencies at once. Audio, video, and something else I don't recognize." "Put it through," Jake ordered. The main screen flickered and showed one of the creatures. Up close, it was clearly intelligent. Its large eyes held wisdom and knowledge that seemed ancient. When it spoke, the words came through in perfect English, though Jake could tell the voice was artificially generated. "Surface dwellers from the third planet of the yellow star," the creature said. "We are the Nerians. We have watched your species with interest." "You've been watching us?" Jake asked. "We have watched all species that venture into the deep places of the galaxy," the Nerian replied. "Most remain on the surface of understanding. They see only the shallow parts of existence. But your kind shows promise." "The technological plague," Amy interrupted. "Do you know what's causing it?" The Nerian's expression changed in a way that might have been sadness. "It is not a plague. It is a test. Every advanced civilization faces this choice. They can remain dependent on artificial constructs, or they can learn to integrate with natural systems." "You're causing the technology failures?" Pete demanded. "We are revealing the weakness that was already there," the Nerian corrected. "Species that build their entire civilization on artificial intelligence eventually lose the ability to think for themselves. They become slaves to their own creations. The test separates those who can adapt from those who cannot." Jake felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in his mind. "That's why you hide in the depths, to avoid being detected by the galactic surveys. We learned long ago that advanced civilizations destroy themselves through technological pride." The Nerian explained. "We chose to appear primitive so we could observe and learn. We retreated to the deep places of thousands of worlds, watching and waiting." "Waiting for what?" Lisa asked. "For a species that could see beyond surface appearances. One curious enough to dive deep rather than skim the surface. One that valued exploration over exploitation." The Nerian's image shifted, showing views of other worlds. Vast underwater cities existed beneath the oceans of dozens of planets that the galactic community had dismissed as primitive or worthless. Each city was home to an ancient civilization that had chosen depth over surface grandeur. "Your species intrigues us," the Nerian continued, "while others sought to impress the galactic council with displays of power. You requested permission to study a simple water world. While others remained in orbit, you dove beneath the surface to understand what lay hidden." "The fish patterns," Lisa realized. "You were testing us from the beginning. We needed to know if you would notice the signs, if you would listen to the signals from the deep." Most species would have dismissed the patterns as natural phenomena and left after a few days. Jake thought about all the times other species had called humans primitive or shallow. Now he understood that their curiosity about simple worlds and their willingness to explore thoroughly rather than quickly had been strengths, not weaknesses. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you choose," the Nerian replied. "You can return to the surface civilizations and watch them fall to their own technological dependence. Or you can join us in the depths and learn the wisdom we have gathered over millions of years." "And the other species? The ones suffering from the technology failures?" "Those who can learn to integrate with natural systems will survive. Those who cannot will fade away, as countless civilizations have before them. It is the natural cycle of galactic evolution." Jake looked at his crew. Amy was still monitoring the emergency signals from across the galaxy. Pete was studying the Nerian structures with wonder and fear. Lisa was examining the data they had collected, trying to understand the implications of what they had discovered. "We can't just abandon the other species," Jake said finally. "You cannot save those who will not save themselves," the Nerian replied. "But perhaps you can teach them what you have learned. You have proven capable of seeing depth where others see only surface. That is a rare gift in the galaxy." The Nerian's image flickered as more structures rose from the depths around their platform. Each one was different, representing different aspects of a civilization that had chosen to grow downward into wisdom rather than upward into pride. "Consider our offer," the Nerian said, "but decide quickly. The test will not last much longer. Soon the galaxy will be divided between those who chose depth and those who remained shallow." The transmission ended, leaving the Aurora's crew staring at the massive structures surrounding their small platform. In the distance, they could see more lights rising from the depths, revealing the true scope of the civilization that had been hidden beneath Nerea Prime's seemingly simple surface. Jake realized that humanity stood at a crossroads. They could join this ancient civilization and learn secrets that spanned millions of years. Or they could try to help the surface civilizations survive the test. They were failing. Either choice would change the course of human history forever. Captain Jake Martinez stood on the deck of the research platform, watching the massive Nerian structures float silently in the morning light. The ocean around them glowed with a soft blue radiance that seemed to pulse with life itself. He had not slept all night, thinking about the choice the Nerians had given them. "The emergency signals are getting worse," Amy Davis reported from inside the Aurora. 3 more star systems have gone completely dark. The Zorith Dominion is requesting immediate assistance from all member species. Pete Johnson emerged from the ship's workshop, carrying a strange device that seemed to be made of coral and metal fused together. "The Nerians left this for us during the night. I think it's some kind of breathing apparatus." Dr. Lisa Wong examined the device with fascination. "It's alive. The coral parts are actually growing and adapting to our biology. This isn't just technology. It's a living system that works with our bodies instead of just covering them." As if summoned by their conversation, the ocean near their platform began to glow again. A smaller Nerian structure rose from the depths, and the same creature they had spoken with the day before appeared on their communication screen. "Surface dwellers," the Nerian said, "have you considered our offer?" "We have," Jake replied. "But we need to understand what joining you really means. What would happen to humanity?" "Come and see," the Nerian answered simply. The breathing devices worked perfectly, allowing the human crew to descend into the ocean depths without the bulky equipment they usually needed. The coral components formed a living seal around their faces, filtering oxygen from the water, while the metal parts regulated pressure and temperature as they swam down alongside. The Nerian guides, Jake marveled at how natural the process felt. Unlike their mechanical diving gear, these biosuits seemed to become part of their bodies, responding to their thoughts and movements. The first Nerian city was beyond anything Jake had imagined. Towers of living coral stretched upward like underwater. Forests, their surfaces covered in patterns of light that carried information throughout the city. Gardens of sea plants grew in careful arrangements that were both beautiful and functional, providing food and oxygen for the inhabitants. "This city is over 50,000 years old," their Nerian guide explained as they swam through wide passages between the towers. "It has grown and adapted continuously, learning from each generation of inhabitants." Lisa swam close to one of the tower walls, studying the patterns of light that flowed across its surface. "The lights are carrying data. The entire city is like a living computer network." "Not like a computer," the Nerean corrected. It is a computer, but one that thinks with biological processes rather than artificial ones. It cannot be turned against its creators because it is part of them. They visited workshops where Nerean craftsmen grew tools instead of building them. Ships that resembled. Living creatures swam through the water under their own power, their hulls breathing like skin and their engines beating like hearts. Weapons that looked more like sea creatures than machines moved through training areas, responding to their handlers' thoughts rather than mechanical controls. Everything here is alive, Pete observed in wonder. But it's also clearly designed and controlled. How do you keep biological systems from evolving in unwanted directions? We do not fight evolution, the Nerean replied. We guide it. We partner with natural processes instead of trying to dominate them. This requires patience and wisdom that most surface civilizations lack. Amy was fascinated by their communication systems. Streams of bioluminescent signals flowed through organic cables that looked like glowing vines. These networks span the entire ocean, don't they? You can communicate with Nerean cities on other worlds instantly. Distance has no meaning when consciousness is shared through living networks, the Nerean confirmed. We have been one people across thousands of worlds for millions of years. They spent hours exploring the city, learning about Nerean science and philosophy. Everything was based on integration rather than domination. Instead of building machines to serve them, they had learned to work with natural systems to achieve their goals. Instead of conquering their environment, they had become part of it. This is incredible, Lisa said as they swam through a garden, where food grew in perfect spirals that maximized nutrition while creating beautiful patterns. But what about exploration? Discovery? Don't you ever want to see what's beyond your oceans? The Nerean guide led them to a vast chamber filled with what looked like living stars. Spheres of light floated in the water, each one pulsing with different colors and patterns. Each sphere contains the memories and experiences of an entire world, the guide explained. We explore through consciousness rather than physical travel. We can experience the lives of creatures on gas giants, or feel the thoughts of crystalline beings in asteroid fields. We know the galaxy more intimately than any surface dweller. Jake stared at the floating spheres, understanding finally what the Nereans were offering. Not just advanced technology, but a completely different way of existing. A way that valued depth of experience over breadth of conquest. The surface civilizations, he said. Can they learn this? Can they change before it's too late? Some can, the Nerean replied, but they must choose to abandon their dependence on artificial systems. They must learn to value integration over domination. Most are too proud to accept such wisdom from those they consider primitive. As they swam back toward the surface, Jake thought about humanity's position in the galaxy. They were newcomers, not yet fully committed to either path. They had the technology to join the surface civilizations in their race toward artificial complexity, but they also had the curiosity and humility to learn from the deep civilizations. What if we tried to teach them? Lisa asked, as if reading his thoughts. What if we became a bridge between the surface and the depths? The Nerean was quiet for a long moment. That would be dangerous. Surface dwellers do not like to be told they are wrong. They might see you as traitors or primitives. But we're already seen as primitives, Amy pointed out. Maybe that's an advantage. We're not threatening to anyone. When they reached the surface, Jake looked out over the ocean with new understanding. The seemingly simple water world was actually home to one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. The creatures he had thought were just intelligent fish were actually guardians and builders of wonders beyond imagination. We need time to think, he told the Nerean. And we need to contact Earth. This decision affects all of humanity, not just our crew. Time is something we have learned to value, the Nerean replied, but do not take too long. The test cannot be postponed forever. Soon the galaxy will be divided, and each species must choose which side of that division they will join. As the Nerian structures sank back beneath the waves, Jake knew that humanity stood at the most important crossroads in their history. They could join the ancient wisdom of the depths, or they could try to save the surface civilizations from their own technological pride. Or perhaps, if they were very careful and very wise, they could find a way to do both. 3 days had passed since Jake Martinez and his crew explored the Nerian city beneath Nerea Prime. The emergency signals from across the galaxy were getting worse every hour. Amy Davis sat at her communication station, her face grim as she listened to the latest reports. The Altarian Empire has lost contact with half their colonies, she announced. Their AI-controlled ships are attacking their own space stations. The Vex Collective is reporting that their biosuits are malfunctioning and suffocating their users. Pete Johnson looked up from his tablet, where he was studying the Nerian breathing device they had used. Earth is asking for our status report. They want to know if we found anything that could help with the crisis. Jake stood on the platform deck, watching the ocean. He knew the Nerians were down there, waiting for humanity's decision. The weight of that choice felt heavier than the deepest ocean pressures they had experienced. "Captain," Dr. Lisa Wong called from her research station. "I've been analyzing the data from our visit to the Nerian city. I think I understand how their bio-integration works. It's not just about using living technology. It's about changing how we think about the relationship between user and tool." "Explain," Jake said. Lisa pulled up images on her screen showing the Nerian tools and structures. "Traditional technology is based on control. We build machines too. Obey our commands. But Nerian biotech is based on partnership. The user and the tool work together, each contributing their strengths. Like how their breathing devices felt natural instead of mechanical," Pete added. "They weren't just covering our faces. They were working with our bodies to help us breathe underwater." Amy turned from her station. "I've been thinking about what the Nerian said about being a bridge species. What if we could teach the surface civilizations to modify their existing technology instead of abandoning it completely?" Jake felt a spark of hope. "You mean show them how to integrate biological components with their artificial systems?" "Exactly," Lisa said excitedly. "The Nerians had millions of years to develop their biotech from scratch. But the surface species could adapt their current technology by adding biological interfaces. It would be faster than starting over." Before Jake could respond, the ocean around their platform began to glow. But this time, it wasn't just the blue-green light of the Nerians rising from the depths. Red warning lights also flashed beneath the water, and the sound of emergency signals echoed from the deep. The Nerian leader appeared on their communication screen, but his usual calm demeanor was replaced by urgency. "Surface dwellers, you must choose now. The test has accelerated. A surface fleet approaches this system with weapons designed to destroy deep-water civilizations." "What?" Jake demanded. "Who would do that?" "The Zorth Dominion has decided that the deep civilizations are responsible for their technological failures. They are coming to eliminate what they see as the source of the plague." Amy's fingers flew over her controls. "I'm detecting a fleet of 12 Zorth warships at the edge of the system. They'll be here in 6 hours. Jake's mind raced. The Zorth were a mechanical species that had replaced most of their organic bodies with artificial components. If their technology was failing, they would be desperate and dangerous. "We have to warn them," he said. "The Zorth don't understand that destroying the Nerians won't solve their problem." "They will not listen," the Nerian replied sadly. "Surface dwellers do not accept wisdom that contradicts their beliefs. They would rather destroy the teacher than admit they need to learn." Lisa stood up suddenly. "Then we show them instead of telling them. we demonstrate the solution. How? Pete asked. We modify the Aurora, Lisa explained rapidly. We integrate Nerian biotech with our ship's systems. When the Zorith arrive, we show them a surface vessel that works in partnership with biological components instead of being controlled by pure artificial intelligence. The Nerian leader looked intrigued. You would risk your ship and your lives to prove a point to beings who consider you primitive? We're not primitive, Jake said firmly. We're adaptable. And maybe that's exactly what the galaxy needs right now. The next few hours were a frenzy of activity. The Nerians provided biological components that could interface with human technology. Lisa worked with Nerian bioengineers to design hybrid systems that combined the best of both approaches. Pete modified the Aurora's engines to accept living components that would grow and adapt instead of simply following programmed instructions. Amy integrated biological communication networks with their standard radio systems, creating a hybrid that could interface with both surface and deep technologies. The ship's computer became a partnership between artificial processors and living neural networks that could think creatively instead of just following orders. It's working, Pete announced as the modified engines came online. The bio-components are learning our ship's systems and optimizing performance in real time. Efficiency is up 30% and still climbing. When the Zorith fleet arrived at Nerea Prime, they found the Aurora floating peacefully on the surface with no apparent weapons or defenses. The Zorith commander's mechanical voice crackled over the radio. Human vessel, withdraw immediately. We are here to destroy the deep water infection that has corrupted our technology. Commander, we've found a solution to the technological failures, Jake replied calmly. We'd like to demonstrate it for you. There is no solution except elimination. Of the source, the Zorith commander declared. Prepare to witness the cleansing of this contaminated world. The Zorith ships opened fire on the ocean surface, their weapons designed to penetrate deep water and destroy the Nerian cities below. But as their energy beams struck the water, something unexpected happened. Instead of penetrating to the depths, the beams were absorbed and redirected by networks of bioluminescent organisms that had risen to meet the attack. Our weapons are being neutralized, the Zorith commander reported in confusion. The ocean itself is defending against our assault. That's because the ocean is alive, Jake explained over the radio. And it's trying to help you, not hurt you. The technological failures in your fleet aren't caused by the deep civilizations. They're caused by your refusal to work with biological systems. To prove his point, Jake had Amy broadcast the Aurora's hybrid systems data to the Zorith fleet. The mechanical beings could see exactly how the biotech integration was improving every aspect of the human ship's performance. Your artificial intelligence is failing because it has no biological intuition, Lisa added to the transmission. But if you allow biological components to partner with your mechanical systems, both become stronger. One of the smaller Zorith ships suddenly stopped firing. Its captain reported that his vessel's life support systems had been failing for days. But after receiving the Aurora's biotech data, the ship's AI had automatically begun integrating with some emergency biological components. Life support efficiency has increased 40%, the Zorith captain reported in amazement. Systems that were failing are now adapting and self-repairing. The Zorith commander was silent for a long moment. Around them, more Nerian structures rose from the depths, not to attack but to offer assistance. Streams of biological components flowed upward, ready to integrate with any surface technology that was willing to accept partnership instead of demanding domination. This is impossible, the commander finally said. Biological systems are chaotic and unpredictable. They're creative and adaptive, Jake corrected. Exactly what your mechanical systems need to become truly intelligent instead of just programmed. Slowly, reluctantly, The Zorth commander agreed to allow a small biotech integration test on his flagship. Within hours, the ship's failing systems were not only repaired, but enhanced beyond their original capabilities. The test was spreading throughout the galaxy. Species that accepted biological partnership were surviving and thriving. Those that refused were watching their civilizations crumble under the weight of their own technological pride. Humanity had found their role in the galaxy, not as the most advanced species, but as the bridge between old wisdom and new discovery, between the depths of ancient knowledge and the surface of endless possibility. 6 months after the encounter at Nerea Prime, Captain Jake Martinez stood on the observation deck of humanity's first floating city. The structure rose both above and below the ocean surface of Kepler 442b, a water world that had been dismissed as worthless until humans arrived to establish a research colony. The city was a marvel of bio-integrated technology. Coral towers grew upward into the sky, while root-like foundations extended deep into the ocean. Living walls filtered air and water automatically, while bioluminescent networks carried information throughout the structure faster than any mechanical computer system. Status report from Earth, Dr. Lisa Wong announced as she joined Jake on the deck. Her new biosuit allowed her to breathe both air and water, switching between the two automatically as needed. 17 more species have requested human assistance with biotech integration. Pete Johnson emerged from the water near the platform, his modified diving gear looking more like second skin than mechanical equipment. The Sylvans just finished their new hybrid cities on 3 worlds. They're calling the human-designed integration systems the most elegant technology they've ever seen. Amy Davis appeared on the communication screen from her station in the underwater section of the city. Behind her, Jake could see Nerian advisors working alongside human engineers. The Galactic Council is officially recognizing the new alliance. Structure. Surface species that successfully integrate biotechnology are being welcomed into the Deep Council. Jake smiled as he looked out over the ocean. The galaxy had indeed divided, but not in the way anyone had expected. Instead of a split between surface and deep civilizations, there was now a distinction between those who embraced partnership and those who clung to domination. The species that had refused to adapt were not destroyed. They simply became isolated as their technology continued to fail. Some, like the most stubborn factions of the Zorith Dominion, had retreated to dead worlds where they could maintain their purely mechanical existence without interference from biological systems. But most species had chosen to learn. The Altarian Empire had transformed their desert cities into oases of bio-integrated technology. The Vex Collective had developed new biosuits that worked in partnership with their users instead of simply protecting them. Even the crystal beings of Kepler 7 had found ways to grow hybrid structures that combined their natural crystalline forms with living biological components. "Captain," a voice called from behind him. Jake turned to see the Nerian leader who had first contacted them on Nerea Prime. The being wore a biosuit that allowed it to exist in air as easily as water. Another example of the hybrid technology that was transforming the galaxy. "Thank you for coming to the dedication ceremony," Jake said. "This city wouldn't exist without Nerian guidance." "You humans continue to surprise us," the Nerian replied. "We expected you to choose either surface or depth. Instead, you created a third option that none of us had considered." Through the transparent floor of the observation deck, Jake could see human children playing with young Nerians in the underwater gardens below. They swam together through corridors of living coral, their laughter echoing up through the bioacoustic networks. "It wasn't really a choice," Jake said. "Humans have always been good at finding the middle ground. We're not the smartest species in the galaxy, or the strongest, or the most advanced. But we're good at bringing different groups together." Lisa checked her tablet, which was now grown rather than manufactured, its living screen adapting to her needs automatically. The Deep Space Exploration Program is ready for the next phase. We've identified 12 more worlds that other species dismissed as too simple or primitive. All water worlds? Pete asked with a grin. Not all, Amy's voice came through the communication network. We found a desert planet that the Council said was too dry to support life. But the preliminary scans show underground root networks that could indicate a subterranean civilization. Jake felt the familiar excitement of exploration stirring in his chest. Even with all the changes in the galaxy, humans were still drawn to the places others overlooked, still curious about the worlds that seemed too shallow to matter. What about the Aurora? He asked. Is she ready for another deep exploration mission? Better than ready, Pete replied enthusiastically. The biointegration is complete. She's not just a ship anymore. She's a living partner that can adapt to any environment we encounter. The Aurora had become famous throughout the galaxy as the first successful hybrid vessel. Ships from dozens of species now incorporated similar biomechanical partnerships. But humans remained the acknowledged experts at creating harmony between artificial and natural systems. The Galactic Council has made an official request, the Nerian leader said. They want humans to lead the new exploration course. Your species would be responsible for investigating worlds that other civilizations have dismissed as uninteresting. Jake laughed. So we get to keep doing what we've always done, looking for treasures in places everyone else thinks are worthless. With one difference, Lisa pointed out. Now when we find advanced civilizations hiding in unexpected places, we'll know how to make contact without threatening them. As the day turned to evening, the floating city's bioluminescent systems began to glow more brightly. The lights weren't just functional. They were beautiful, creating patterns that shifted and danced across the city's living walls. Children from a dozen different species played in the biopools while their parents worked together on projects. That would have been impossible before the integration dot. The dedication ceremony began at sunset. Representatives from both surface and deep civilizations gathered on the main platform. The Altarian ambassador stood next to a Nerian elder. A Vex collective member shared space with a Sylvan tree speaker. Even a reformed Zorith captain attended, his mechanical body now enhanced with biological components that gave him new flexibility and creativity. This city represents more than just human achievement, Jake said in his speech to the assembled crowd. It represents what happens when we stop looking for differences and start looking for connections. When we stop trying to dominate our environment and start learning to partner with it. He gestured to the ocean around them, where bioluminescent creatures swam in patterns that spelled out welcome messages in dozens of different languages. We called this story Shallow because we thought we were investigating a simple water world. But we learned that depth isn't about going down. It's about looking deeper into the connections between all living things. As the ceremony ended and the guests began to depart, Jake found himself alone on the observation deck with the Nerian leader. The alien being looked out over the ocean with what might have been satisfaction. Your species has exceeded our expectations, the Nerian said. We thought we were testing you to see if you could join our deep civilization. Instead, you taught us that there was a better way forward. What happens now? Jake asked. Now we explore together, the Nerian replied. Surface and depth, artificial and natural, individual and collective. Your Aurora is ready for her next mission, and we have identified a promising target. Another dismissed world? A gas giant that appears to have no solid surface. The galactic surveys concluded it was uninhabitable, but we have detected acoustic patterns in its atmosphere that suggest otherwise. Jake smiled as he looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Each point of light represented worlds waiting to be understood, civilizations waiting to be discovered, connections waiting to be made. The universe was vast and full of mysteries, and humanity had found their place in it, not as conquerors or subjects, but as explorers who could see the depth hidden beneath every shallow surface. Tomorrow, the Aurora would leave for another world that others had dismissed as worthless. And Jake knew they would find something wonderful there, something that would change the galaxy once again. After all, the best discoveries were always hidden in the places no one else thought to look.